Hi guys, I'm Whitney, and this is what they told me was good. This is gonna be a little bit of a different video. I kind of got lost in the internet a little bit and started having some really interesting discussions with some die-hard science fiction fans who were recommending to me that I should be reading some of the more historically influential books of science fiction, and that this would change my understanding of modern science fiction, because there are threads and themes that run through the genre as a whole. So I decided to take them up on this challenge. So I ended up curating a list of just 3 authors at 4 books each, based off of a list that a couple of people that I trust curated for me, and also reading the backs of book covers and deciding which of the books I wanted to read. A lot of these books are books that I have not yet read, so I'm just inviting you in on this project in case you're interested in following along or trying it out with me, or in case you're interested in seeing what becomes of this. Let's get into these 3 science fiction authors. Now, the first author that I chose was James Blish. James Blish had his heyday in the 1950s and probably beyond. I wasn't there, I don't know. But I can tell you that he wasn't just a science fiction author, he was also somebody who was a science fiction critic. And he insisted that the people who did science fiction books at the time used science that could actually be possible according to the rules of science that we knew at the time, which sounds kind of familiar, right? Heinlein, right? He's also one of the most quoted influences for Ursula Le Guin. She herself admitted that he inspired a lot of her works and a lot of her style, which is something that is really exciting to me because I really enjoy her stuff. But he's also quoted, according to the internet, to be influences with Greg Bear and John Varley and even Stephen Baxter. I chose a quartet here that I'm holding off camera, sorry about that. This quartet is something that caught my eye because he decided to look at scientific advancement and even contacting alien race and seeing how that would impact society's hold on belief and religion, which is kind of a big topic, sir. So I'm kind of excited. This is not something that I feel like is often covered, and so I'm really intrigued to pick these books up. You should know that the order of these books is very confusing. I did read one of these books and unfortunately is out of order almost every time. So sorry about that. So the first book that I should read is going to be Dr. Mirabilis. The next book should be Black Easter and Days of Judgment. Now, I realize that this is only one book and this has neither title. I found out that this book, Devil's Day, is actually an omnibus edition of Black Easter and Day of Judgment. And these books are the ones that have to be read in order. And then last but not least is A Case of Conscience. And this is the book that I've heard so much about. And so this is the book that I've actually already read, which is kind of interesting that it's the last in the series. And also it ends on a cliffhanger. So maybe I'm going to understand the cliffhanger and the significance of that a little bit more when I read the other 3 books. But you'll have to come back when I have everything done and I'll let you know. So the next author I chose was John Brunner. John Brunner was around a lot in the 60s, is one of those authors that a lot of people quote influences on, was really well known for being a dark prophetic author, which means that he looked at the world around him and saw the problems that the world was having and decided to take those problems and project outward to see what it would be like and how the world would be destroyed with that problem if it kept going the way that things are currently going. So you can see how influential that could become. Now, I chose 4 books in particular of his that are colloquially called the Club of Rome. Now, I'm not exactly sure why it's called that, so you'll have to let me know if you know in the comments down below. I do want you to know that each of these books can be handled individually. He took 4 of the pillars of possible causes that he identified as world-ending causes. He took 4 particular pillars of destruction that he thought were going to end the world if we kept going the way that we were going. And he wrote a book for each of the causes. And so some of these books are particularly famous and you may or may not remember them. The first one is called The Sheep Look Up. This is not the prettiest cover, so I'm going to put a different one on the screen. The Sheep Look Up deals with environmental catastrophes, many of them. The next one is A Jagged Orbit. This one deals with social inequalities. Then we have Stand on Zanzibar, which is starting to have a little bit of a comeback in certain communities. And this one deals with overpopulation. And the last one which is one that I have on audiobook, is called Shockwave Rider, and that one deals with the future technology. All of these books have sort of bleak outcomes, but remember that they're standalone books and that you can read them individually if you so wish. Some of the authors who are quoted as being influenced by John Brunner, or whose works are obviously influenced by John Brunner, are really big names like Kim Stanley Robinson, William Gibson, Michael Moorcock, and Margaret Atwood, and so many more. Definitely somebody who is supposed to be a very influential author, and I can't wait to pick up more of his stuff. The next author is going to be J.D. Ballard. This author was very influential in the 80s, although remember, my timing could be a little bit off. It's just a guesstimation. Ballard is supposedly very influential in making dystopia its own subgenre and really establishing it. Now remember that he never wrote the original dystopias, but he did really influence it and show people that it was a wide open subgenre that you could do a lot with, that really had a lot to say and was a legitimate way to critique society as a whole and lots of other things in dystopias. So that's a pretty cool claim to fame, and wow, I'm really excited to pick up his stuff, especially because he also, according to the internet, did not like the space opera narrative that was so popular in his heyday. He decided that since everybody was focused on the solar system and multiple planets and the future of human society as a whole, he decided that what he was going to focus on was bringing science fiction back to the individual human, or a small individual group of people. A lot of his work really focuses on the psychological impact that a devolution in society or a collapse in our technology would have, which is kind of an intriguing concept to me. A lot of his books are probably going to be a little bit bleak, often well known for being called impressionistic and being very vague with his narrative style, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure I'm gonna like it, but I'm really excited to definitely try it out. So I will commit to these 4 books to check out what kind of influences they've had on the genre. So the ones I picked up are gonna be The Drowned World. This book deals with the Arctic ice caps melting, and so the entire world is drowning in water. Lots of cities are being flooded and everything is becoming water. And then he wrote the opposite of that, The Drought, where water has become a scarcity. And so I'm really excited to read these 2 back to back, in particular to see, does he use opposite themes? Does he use the same themes, just in different ways? How does he compare both too much water and too little water in his books? So those are 2 that I'm definitely going to pick up soon. I have a book that is a little unusual and definitely gives me Jeff Vandermeer vibes, and that is A Crystal World, or I'm sorry, The Crystal World. The Crystal World takes place in Africa in a jungle where there has been some kind of rip in either dimension or time. I was very unclear on that from the back of the book, but there's been some kind of tear and everything around it starts becoming crystal. And that includes the plants, the animals, the ground, everything. And so as you can imagine, a lot of people are running away. And this book features several people who are attracted, who are going towards the disaster. And one of them in particular happens to be a Jesuit priest, which definitely is starting to give me some Hyperion vibes. So Hyperion mixed with Jeff Vandermeer, I don't know, I'm really intrigued to check this book out. This is one that I'm definitely gonna put on my TBR in at least the next month. The last one is one that is still on its way to me. For some reason it got delayed, and that is High Rise, which is probably his most famous work. This book features a high-rise, I think it's an apartment building, where a class war breaks out. So they're having fights in rooms and elevators and hallways, and it's supposed to be a really amazing discussion on class and society as a whole. So can't wait to pick that one up. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Snowpiercer vibes, you know, like fighting a class war on a train, fighting a class war in a high-rise building. Anyway, I don't know, I haven't read it yet. I will let you know. And that does it for my foundational, influential trio that all start with B's that I'm gonna check out. I'm really excited to do this challenge, and I cannot wait to let you guys know how influential these authors were, at least in my opinion, and to see if I can change my opinion on modern science fiction with some older science fiction authors. So see you next time, you guys.